In this video, we're going to show you how to replace a lower control arm on your Honda Accord. Using a 19mm socket, remove the 5 lug nuts. Remove the wheel. Remove the cotter pin out of the lower ball joint. Just used a pair of pliers. Using a 19mm socket, remove the castle nut off the lower ball joint. Before pulling the knuckle forward and separating the ball joint, you can remove the axle nut using a 36mm socket. You don't have to do this step, but if you do, you won't have to worry about the axle separating inside of the boot. Pull the control arm down and push the knuckle forward. There's 3 14mm bolts for the front of this control arm. There's one here, and then 2 more inside of these holes. Remove the bolts. Using a 14mm socket, remove the 2 bolts in the rear of the control arm. Remove the bolt. Remove the control arm. Install the new control arm. Right now I have the control arm sitting above the lower ball joint. Go around and get all your bolts started by hand. We're going to get our 2 rear bolts started. You want to be very careful with these rear bolts because they're going into aluminum and it will strip very easy. It can be helpful to use a pry bar to help put things into position. Go around and snug the bolts down. Torque the front bolts to 52 foot-pounds. Torque the rear bolts to 47 foot-pounds. If you pulled the axle nut out, make sure that the axle is lined up in the splines and the hub. Using a large pry bar, I'm going to pry down on the lower control arm and install my lower ball joint. Install the nut onto the lower ball joint. Snug down the castle nut. Torque the ball joint nut to 51 foot-pounds. And up to an additional 60 degrees, or until you can fit a pin through the slot in the nut and the hole in the stud. Install the cotter pin and bend it up and around. If you removed the axle nut, install that now. Snug it down. Using a pry bar to hold the studs, we're going to torque the axle nut to 242 foot-pounds. Using a punch and a hammer, we're going to stake the axle nut. Install the wheel. Get the 5 lug nuts started. Snug them down. Using a 19mm socket, we're going to torque our lug nuts in a star pattern to 80 foot-pounds. And you're good to go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.